have you heard of Gata? I only heard about this Armenian pastry a few months ago when I met Polina Chesnakova at a book signing for her incredible book called Chesnok in Boston. And for me, this was love at first bite. So this pastry is buttery, super flaky, not too sweet. It's everything I want in a baked good. And today we have Polina here with us to help us learn to make it.
Okay, so we're going to start with flour, and we're going to add our salt. And you can use your hands or a whisk, blend it all together. And now we start to grate the frozen butter on the coarsest holes. And periodically, as I'm grating, I'm mixing the grated butter into the flour so that it doesn't clump. And I know people are going to ask this in the comments, but if you have a food processor, yes, you can use a food processor for mixing the dough.
So if I'm using a food processor for this, do I cut my butter into cubes or slices and then put flour with butter into the food processor and pulse?
Yes, so first you would add the flour and salt, pulse a few times to blend it. Then you would add cubed butter that is frozen, and you pulse it until you have sort of coarse crumbs. And then you can add your liquids and pulse until it comes together.
It's like a fluffy sheep?
Yes. So then, now that it's evenly interspersed, I'll kind of continue to cut the butter into the flour by sort of rubbing it between my fingers.
And how do we know when we got there? We no longer want to see the shavings of butter? We want to see more like couscous texture?
Not quite couscous, but you're trying to turn these gratings into flat flakes. You see how it's...
So you're flattening out your
Yes.
gratings. So
Which is essentially what you're doing.
Here's a crazy idea.
Yeah.
Could I dump this on the counter and frisage
Yes,
it?
you
And
could
then
do
put
that.
it back in the bowl?
Yeah,
We could? Can I try it?
sure, why
Let's
not?
try it. What I love about frisage is when it's done on the counter, you're handling each little bit of dough only once. So
Right.
you're not at risk of over kneading one part while the other part doesn't get any action.
Right.
So we have occasional actual grating of butter, but we also have this flattened pieces like this guy. All right, so we're going back into the bowl.
We have our sour cream and egg yolks. We'll whisk it together. You could also use a fork. So at this point, I'm just using a fork to kind of give me a head start. If I use my hands, it'll get too sticky. So use with open hands, you take the dough and you press down. Turn the bowl, fold, press down. The first time I made this dough, I was like, oh no, I need more liquid. I need to add water and more sour cream. But I found that as I did this kneading technique, the dough sort of took care of itself. A mess. So at this point, you can continue to knead in the bowl, or
Might be easier on the counter. Right?
might be easier on the counter. What do you
Okay,
think?
here.
And you can even use a bench scraper to help fold the dough onto itself. And this folding technique also will help you build layers. And you'll find too that as you're bringing this together, the dough will kind of tell you when it's ready to stop being worked. All right, that's it.
So just like with pie dough, you're not looking for total cohesion. It can look kind of
Like a shaggy-
cauliflower.
Right.
It does not. Oh, there will be cracks. That's okay. As it rests in the fridge, they will fuse together.
So if you're like me and you like to be very precise, I will cut the dough in half and then measure each half on a scale. Wrap it. Now we turn it over, and then with my rolling pin, I'll flatten it out, and that's how I get my nice, even edges. All right. All Right, so the filling in Armenian we call it horitz, and essentially what we're making is a streusel.
And I see you're using a fine grater.
Yes, so for the dough we used a coarse grate, and for this we want the butter to really fully incorporate into our flour, and so we're using a smaller grate here. And periodically, as I grate, I mix the butter into the flour so that it doesn't clump.
Polina, in this recipe, we're not using vanilla extract, we're using vanilla sugar.
Correct.
Can you tell me what is the difference and why we're doing this?
So vanilla extract is vanilla in its most natural form. Vanilla sugar is artificial vanilla flavoring. And I use it in this recipe because for anyone that grew up having desserts or pastries with vanilla sugar, is a very specific flavor, aroma, and it's very nostalgic. And so for me, for gata to taste like gata, I use vanilla sugar. The other reason is that we add it into our horitz, our streusel filling. And the streusel, you'll see, is a kind of dry, crumbly mixture. And if we added vanilla in its liquid form, it would clump. And so vanilla sugar, it's dry, it'll incorporate into our horitz.
And we can keep that crumbliness.
Yes, exactly.
And is this hard to get? Can I just go to regular supermarket?
No, I find that it's actually incredibly easy to find these days. You can get it at any local supermarket in your baking aisle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just in case your store doesn't have it, there's always Amazon.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Right, so now I'm just kind of going through with my hands, make sure there aren't any large clumps. And I will take a 1/4 teaspoon of Diamond Crystal Kosher salt, regular sugar. All right, and now we're going to mix it all together. And I'm going to use my hands to rub the butter into the flour and sugar mixture. You can see now that I've sort of rubbed it in, when I grab a handful, it holds together. You can use it immediately or you can chill it until you need to use it. Lightly dust our surface. I'll even dust our dough. And we want it to be nice and pliable when we're rolling it out. So what I do is I take my rolling pin and I beat it. I beat the disc a couple of times. All right, so I'm starting in the center and rolling out, rolling towards myself. And when I rotate it too, I'm kind of moving it around just to make sure that it's not sticking. If you find that the dough starts to get sticky, the butter starts to melt, just transfer it to a baking sheet, put it in the fridge, and let it chill. Allow the dough to chill, and that way you can chill out a little bit too.
So you evened it out so nicely. And how did you do it? You just kind of pulled slight. So
where you're...
So you're tilting your pin.
I'm tilting my pin and I'm applying pressure where I want to see the dough to move.
So when I had that little indent here and I couldn't even it out,
yes,
you tilted the pin in that spot to fill that gap.
Yes. So we have our 17, so now we just need to roll it out to 15 inches. In this way we get a lot of rolls so that we have a really beautiful cross section when we cut into our dough later on. So we use some egg white. We're going to brush it evenly over our dough, just a light layer. And what this does is it helps the filling stick to the dough so that it doesn't fall out.
As we're
yes.
Do we need any sort of border, or are you going all the way?
I leave about 1/2 inch on all sides. And now we're going to sprinkle half of this, just eyeball it.
The streusel is where you get some variation in the recipes, right? Some people might use some ground up nuts, some people toast the flour. So this is that improvisational part.
Yes, you can toast the flour to kind of bring out the nutty notes in the flour. You can ground up nuts like walnuts, almonds, hazelnuts. And what I'm doing is I'm evening out the filling, and I'm also pressing it down into the dough so that it sticks. So Helen, remember when I said that you don't have to worry about too much of having perfectly even edges? So what we're going to do is that we're just going to fold it over. So now here's the fun part. You start to roll it. So see this border? Basically follow that border to create your first fold. And you're pressing it down. Now you fold it again. Thankfully our dough is being kind to us. It's nice and chilled, and so it's not sticking. If you are making this in the summertime, your kitchen is warm and you found that the dough is sticking, what you do is you take your bench scraper and basically help scrape the dough off from your surface.
This dough feels slightly less cracky than pie dough. I guess it's because you have sour cream and yolks in there. It feels fairly comfortable to work with.
I really think that the egg yolk has a component in it called lecithin, which if you've ever seen it in an ingredient list,
it's an emulsifier.
It's an emulsifier, and so I find that the egg yolk really helps the dough stay pliable. Oops, you see a little sticking. So it helps create a dough that's very easy to work with, but it's not the most sturdy dough, so you wouldn't actually want to use this for, let's say, pie dough.
What works for it in this recipe is that there's nothing wet here.
Right.
So it doesn't need to hold any wet filling.
Exactly. We're going to use the rolling pin to apply slight pressure to slightly flatten it. Just light pressure. And notice I'm not going back and forth. I'm starting from the center, rolling out one direction and the second. And now we can transfer it to our baking sheet so that it will chill. And I'm using just egg yolk so that I can have a really nice, burnished, deep brown crust on top for when it bakes. Now here's the part that makes the gata very distinct, is that you use a fork to make this beautiful crisscross pattern. The next is you're using a vegetable crinkle cutter that you can get anywhere online. We are going to cut the end away, and then we're going to cut at a diagonal about every 1.5 to 2 inches, depending on how thick you want them to be.
So one log fits one half sheet.
Essentially, yes. So you don't have to be too precious about the space between.
And ideally, you would put this in the fridge for about 20 minutes.
Yes, 15-20 minutes, but if you're in a rush, you can put it straight into the oven because we chilled it for a bit.
Let's do it. Here they are.
We are looking for a nice golden burnished crust, and then on the bottoms, you see that it's nice.
Oh, that is such gorgeous color.
Gata, straight from the oven.
Straight from the oven. Oh my gosh.
It's flaky, it's crispy, soft and tender.
And it's every possible texture, from the super crispy outside to still slightly soft doughy inside. And just perfect. So the recipe with all the measurements is in the description below the video, and the link to Polina's book is in the description below as well. Polina, this was so fun.
It was my pleasure
that I get a baking lesson, and this was delightful.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Helen.